Hello, my name is Rosanna. When I started at Free, I was like their 4th employee. I was their like in-house videographer and editor. And right now I'm based in LA. I'm a film director.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name's Dani Reynolds. So when I worked at Free, I was the channel manager, so managed all the editorial and the social output. Now I dabble in a lot of different creative things. My main role is acting as the art director at Castor & Pollux, which coincidentally enough was also founded by another Creator Class alumni. And then I do some photo work on the side.
My name is Adam Madrzyk. I was the first OG Free Creator Class intern, and I worked under Rosanna. Could I get a round of applause for Rosanna? Yeah, so that was an awesome experience. And now I'm a filmmaker / cinematographer based out of Toronto.
Hey guys, I'm Pinlac, and I'm a filmmaker from Toronto. And while I was at Free, I pretty much took over Rosanna's job when she had to spread her wings and fly. But right now, yeah, I'm just a filmmaker working with my friends under the name Tier Zero.
Say hi. So we want to focus today on, obviously the conversation can take us wherever, but I wanted to focus on talking to you guys about the early formative years of your careers, the kinds, it can be difficult when you're sort of forging a path in a developing industry to know there's not like you do this, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're a cinematographer, you're a director. So to talk about the specific steps that you guys took to get where you are and know that they're, you know, different for everybody, but see, I think, if there are any commonalities between all of your experiences. So with that in mind, I wanted to ask everyone or a couple of you to talk about how you discovered what it was exactly that you wanted to do, if you feel like you know that still, or if that might change. You know, was there a particular moment where you thought, I want to make this my job, this isn't just something I enjoy doing?
Well, for me, I think I was working in not as much of a like visually creative role, so that was something that I wanted to do, build my portfolio. So I would wake up really early before work and shoot some photos at home. I'm really not a morning person, so I feel like that was like a good telltale sign that I'm just like, I should be doing this if it's getting me out of bed at like 7 a.m.
For me, I realized that I wanted to do video and be in the film world back in high school, and that was a long time ago when there was no real path for like videographers, for filmmakers. I remember taking a course in high school and making like stupid little films, and I was a super shy and reserved person back in high school. So being able to express myself through films, it was like the only way I could like communicate myself. So I felt like that was like the only option I could do. It was like my true calling, I felt. So there wasn't really like, at that moment I just felt like that was the only thing I could do, you know? Like I had a skill in it and I had to like express myself that way.
So I grew up in London, Ontario. Shout out to London. London. London was great, but I was happy to move to Toronto. And originally, the reason why I got into filmmaking was through skateboarding and through snowboarding. In London, we had like the small community, and that small community, there was a few filmmakers that made like these homemade videos and sold those videos at our local board shops. And they sold them successfully, and they would always sell out. And I was like, damn, these kids are creating these like awesome edits, and created this whole culture in London, Ontario when it came to skateboarding and snowboarding and filmmaking. And this was like the pre-YouTube era. So I found that super inspiring, and then I actually ended up winning a Canon contest in grade 12, where I met Chris, and then from there I worked on a few movie sets, and I eventually led me to intern here at Free, and I studied at Ryerson afterwards, and then just developed from there.
Yeah, for me, it was just through sheer desperation. Seeing that my brother was becoming a doctor and my sister was becoming a nurse, and then within a Filipino household, that's like commonly accepted and definitely something that my parents wanted. And for me, I had no idea what I wanted to do after high school. And luckily enough, my friend who was actually going to film school kind of put a camera in my hand. It was a Canon T3i Rebel, and something that could do a lot of things for such a small price, and I just took it and ran with it from there on out.
My parents were always really supportive, but they were always like, obviously we think you're very talented, obviously we're so happy for you to have interests that you like. It's just such a hard way to make a living, isn't it? It's so difficult. And I think I really internalized that, and it took kind of like moving to another country and not having any other skills or way to make a living to be able to like step up and actually try and make it my job. Did you guys have any moments for yourselves where you thought, well, this is a fun thing to do, or I like doing this, I'm good at it, but obviously it can't be my job, and how did you overcome that if you did?
So for me, I think one of the biggest barriers that I had was originally not having a portfolio. So that was quickly solved at Free. So I started out as an intern, as I mentioned, but since I was the very first intern, they treated me like a real employee. So I started shooting videos, and I was helping Rosanna edit, and they gave me a bunch of responsibilities. And I think after that they realized, like, wait, he's just an intern. And like the person that followed, I don't know if they were lucky enough to have that many opportunities. But I really tried taking advantage of that. And following that, I started just pitching projects left, right, and center. I started cold calling people, cold emailing people, setting up meetings, and I would get turned down, and people would be like, bro, you look like you're 12, which I still do. So this was a few years ago, so imagine how young I looked then. But yeah, I just stepped up the courage, and I started pitching stuff, and I was like director, editor, DP, everything on it. But I learned so much through those experiences, and I learned marketing, and then from there I kind of started streamlining into just cinematography, which I do now.
All these jobs, all creative jobs, do involve, like you say, a ton of rejection. Maybe that's a better way to frame it. How do you guys, especially in the earlier days of your careers when you were maybe a little less confident or had fewer successes to look at when you were confronting failures or rejection, how did you persevere in the face of rejection? What did you tell yourself when you got a rejection?
Well, I almost felt like I had nothing to lose. I came from like a small town in BC. It's not Vancouver, it's Coquitlam. Ooh, Coquitlam. Hey! So I felt like I had nothing to lose, to be honest, because I was already, like, the odds were stacked against me, a person of color, like this timid Asian girl trying to be a filmmaker. I felt like, I don't know, with every video I just wanted to prove myself too, with rejection, that like I could do it and that I'm okay, even though it's not like the most proud thing that I've had to offer. I think that like with every opportunity I got, I tried to like prove myself too, you know, with like even like proving to other people. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it and had the ability to, you know, carry through this journey that I'm going on. I mean, another thing is also like 10 years ago, there wasn't this market of like YouTube. There wasn't this market of like what it is now. There's no like opportunities now. So for me, it was like I could only see myself like winning awards or like doing wedding videos. You know, there was no real like correlation to that, and like no real like there's no real like options. So then I just like set my goal to be like, I'm gonna win a fucking award, you know. And so every step of my way have been to kind of try to pursue that, just for kicks, you know.
I guess it just came down to just doing free work. Yeah, I think it was the most difficult thing to do at the time when starting out, but it was the most crucial thing because for me at least, not going to film school, I didn't have a film reel, so I had to prove my worth by just having to reach out, cold calling, cold emailing, and just saying, hey, let me just come into, I don't know, to your store example, livestock, and just shoot something. And they said, no, don't do it. I still did it anyways, even though I knew the person who worked there. And I still did it, shot it, it was completely shit. And but the thing was though, that video that I sent them was still a reminder 6 months after where they were still looking for an in-house videographer. It's like, you know that shitty guy who sent us that video? Yeah, let's call him up, see what happens. But within those 6 months though, I built my portfolio doing less shittier jobs, and when it came to the interview, he literally put a shoe on the table and be like, make a video out of this, and then left the room. And from there on out, I just did it and got the job, and that was kind of like my golden ticket to actually making this into an actual job.
Yeah, that definitely resonates with me too. I think it's sometimes about kind of creating your own opportunities. If you kind of get rejected a bunch of times from these paid projects, shooting things in your own home. I actually got my first freelance job by just shooting some stuff myself, and someone thought it was a paid thing and was like, oh, can you do that for us? Like, how much does that cost? I'm like, I just did that myself. Like, yeah. But like, definitely resonate with what you're saying. Like, what do you have to lose? Might as well try. Like, experiment. Always, like, just keep putting work out there, even if you're like, I don't know about this. Like, Instagram's free. Like, might as well like maximize like your distribution on that channel.
Totally.
Yeah.
Regarding working for free, because that's, I think, a really common experience for anyone in any creative industry at the start of their career. How did you, what was your, I think I love to ask people who work in creative industries about their side hustle. Like, what did you do to be able, what was your circumstance that let you do work for free? Some people have a part-time job, some people have, very generous parents, some people squat. Like, how did you make that work for you? And then how did you know that you were at a point where you could start charging for what you did?
I started at this restaurant called Cactus Club. But, it's alright. But,
Shade.
the thing was, though, when I moved out of my parents' home, the only reason why I had to move out was because they didn't accept me taking in filmmaking as like something serious. And so that side hustle, my main income coming from a restaurant industry was pretty much paying for my camera, was paying for that allotted time that I could do shoots in the weekends. And when I was able to, transition slowly, it was kind of sad where my grandmother was like in the hospital, and she told me two things before she passed away, and she said was, one, come back home, stay closer to your family, and two, it was like keep doing your thing with film. And with those two connections, after she passed, it was just like a no-brainer of just like, yo, I'm gonna quit my job, move back home, which was kind of embarrassing because my mom was like, yo, I told you so, that you can't make it. But it was a big motivator for me to like give it my all. So right when I moved back home, I was just doing free work constantly, just trying to get my name out there and figure it out. And just from that push from my grandmother, just made it all happen for me.
I started out working at Little Caesars. Shouts out to everyone's favorite late night pizza. I worked there for a little bit, and I earned enough money to shoot my own first short film and buy my first camera. And then from there, as soon as I made that paycheck, I quit my job, and I was like, I'm going to pursue this all the way, as hard as I can. And from there, I went directly into Ryerson. I grew up in a family that's first-generation Canadian with Polish parents who moved here with only a suitcase, and their mentality was always like, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. And I was fortunate enough that they always embraced any creative outlet I had and pushed me towards fulfilling that. I tried taking advantage of that and just really taking advantage of filmmaking and pursuing my passion.
It's definitely valuable and worth it, I feel. Like right now it may be a situation where like brands are taking advantage of people who want to do that, and that's like a tricky situation, but it's putting out work that you're proud of, and you're investing money into for other clients who want to pay for that,
How do you personally decide whether it's worth it to work for free or not?
Oh, I know a good one that Du actually told me the 3 Ps. Do you want to say it?
No, go ahead.
People,
People Project Pay.
People Project Pay.
Oh yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Do you want to explain that?
If it's
If you had 2 out of 3 Ps, it's worth taking on.
Do you want to say that into the microphone for the
Oh,
large
sorry, my
audience that's
bad,
here
my
to
bad.
listen to?
So it's 3 Ps, the People Project Pay, and if you hit 2 out of 3 Ps, the job's worth taking on.
Yeah, I heard a version of that that's like you should either learn something, make a ton of money, or have a really good time.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing at least one of those, it's a huge mistake, and you should try to be doing 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 obviously is a dream job. Okay, what would you say, so you've all been working for, what, like 5 years, a little more, a little less, give or take?
Mhm.
Sort of like squiggly line, 5 years?
Yeah.
What would you say was the biggest challenge of the earliest phase of your career?
I think for me, mine was, and I think a lot of creatives can like identify with this, it's navigating like the business element of that because you're so caught up in production and the visual aspect that you kind of forget about how to negotiate or like don't know how to properly price your work. That's something that I still am like trying to figure out. It's such like a Tetris of like, oh, I don't know. But I think that was like, I don't know, for me that was like the biggest challenge.
And how did you end up figuring out how to price your work? Or I guess if you're still struggling with it, what do you try to do when you're evaluating what a reasonable price is for your labor?
Oh geez, I think that, you know, money's such like a taboo thing, but like it is okay to look to your network and ask kind of, this is what I'm doing, this is what the ask, like do you think that this is like an appropriate rate? Like I think that's totally acceptable to do, first of all.
Yeah, I guess not only knowing your worth through like your money, but just through your talent. Like you see so much talent around you, especially like having to scroll through the feed, and you just get super self-conscious in the beginning. I don't have the right gear, I don't have enough experience, but yeah, I was just like having these conversations of just telling myself, yo, just quit right now, just because you just don't have it in you to like make something that's dope as what the next man is doing.
And what do you guys do? I mean, creative burnout is very common as well, especially with the schedules I'm sure that you guys are working. What do you do when you're feeling like stalled or uninspired, but you still have to produce?
I have these fantasies where I just quit videography, quit video in general, and just like learn how to dance, you know, like learn something completely different. Yeah, like completely different from the field, but just still furthers my profession as like an artist. So I'm still dealing with that like answer. So when that question was emailed to us, I was thinking like, you know, I'm struggling with that because sometimes right now I feel burnt out and like I want to learn how to dance, you know, because that's been like my long-term dream forever. But like I think focusing on things that further yourself as an artist really helps like your main hustle, which is like editing. You know, it's just like such a laborious task to do sometimes, just literally staring at a computer screen until your eyes are just so dry you can't even like blink sometimes.
Facts.
It just like refreshes your energy to like pursue more and like search for more and have like a more depth to like what you're even making.
Yeah, like as a freelancer, you yourself are like your best business asset, and I don't think that you should feel guilty about like spending time away. You know, like how you spend your time away from work is just as important as how, you know, you spend your work time, and that doesn't necessarily mean like researching and getting like going to all these museums. Like it can be things like dancing and like gotta refresh your mind and take care of yourself.
Do you want to go?
If anyone's read The Artist's Way, fill the well. Anybody? Guys, you gotta read The Artist's Way. Oh my God, like someone? One person? It's really good. It's a book by Julia Cameron. Really good excuse to go on a lot of walks and say that it's for your practice.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Some early, what were we talking about? Challenges?
Yeah.
Burnout.
Yeah, I think it's also something that I've experienced and learned in the past year. I think over the past few years, I've like obsessed over getting as much as I can on my portfolio and really pushing to get as many projects on there and be as diverse as I can within my work. But recently I realized through my lovely girlfriend that I need to spend some time some solo time outside of film. And recently I've tried going back to my roots, which was skateboarding and music. And those are two things that I'm trying to develop a creative passion outside of film. and kind of sit back and still have my creative juices flowing, but not be fully invested in film 100% of the time.
I feel like when you're feeling uninspired, it's kind of synonymous to having this creative block. And one of my old friends back in Vancouver goes by the name of Robert Chaplin. He has the Guinness World Record of having the smallest book in the world. You can fact check that. But one thing that kind of stuck with me was like, if you're if you're getting open heart surgery from a surgeon, and he decides to have the surgeon's block, then what, right? And that kind of seemed like, as silly as that sounds, that still applies to what we do. Like, I don't think you have the luxury, if you decide to have this as a career, to have a creator's block, because I feel like there's no time for that, and then you just kind of have to persevere through it.
Damn. I know what you mean, though. I think it can be really helpful to think of what we do as a craft and a skill. You know, you want to think of creativity as this really amorphous, kind of difficult, intangible thing. But, like, you know, I'm a comedy writer, and if I'm, like, very sad one day, still got to write some jokes, and there's something very comforting to me in being like, all right, I'm just going to, like, do it like I'm farming or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not getting lucky every time I make a joke. I have a skill, and I know how to write those. So I'm just like, just sit down and just get some punchlines and some pictures. And you can do it even if you're not having the most fun of your life doing it. Grim, but useful, right?
I also realized that this year that, like, balance is key, and yeah, just not obsessing over doing as much work as you can, but kind of stepping back and being a bit more selective with projects is sometimes frowned upon, and you might also lose out on some clients that might not ever return back to you, but I think it's worth seeing that difference and seeing how you can balance out your life properly, because for me personally, I realize if I'm a bit more selective, that 10% extra time that I have, I actually develop more within the projects that I actually do work on than I did, like, having that 10% more in my portfolio. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Totally. And
yeah.
how do you say no, asking for a friend?
It's hard. Like, honestly, in film, you risk, like, if I pass on the job to my friend, they might be their go-to guy, and you have to be okay with that. And there's been many times that I've passed on a project, and then that client has never called me back. But at the end of the day, you have to realize what's the best for you, and you have to be okay with that. That's life.
Oh my God, you're like 11 years old and so wise. Okay. So obviously community is really important. Having a creative community of like-minded peers is really important, just like socially and professionally and creatively, but also networking is horrible. And sucks and feels unnatural and awkward to do. So do you have any advice about how to find your community or connect with people whose work you admire in a way that feels comfortable and natural and not like I'm wearing a name tag and like here's my Instagram handle kind of thing?
When I moved to Toronto, that was the only thing I did. I just hit up people like on the DM and was like, I like your work, let's meet up for coffee. And it's really uncomfortable at first, but it really challenges you to kind of know yourself and like know if you like fuck with that person or not. But it was really fun, to be honest, because it was terrifying because I didn't know anyone moving to Toronto nor like moving to LA. Like I didn't know anybody, but I don't know, I get the sadistic high from it because I'm such a shy person, I get like a high from meeting someone who I actually like can hang out with and talk about things other than work. So it's kind of like a little game that I play in my head. Like it's less of like a task that I have to do to like network. Networking is just like a bad word to use. It's just like making friends, you know? Sliding into the GM, you know? Some work on that way.
For me, I was fortunate enough to grow up in the age of social media. So networking for me was seeing someone at the event, and I was like, yo, you're Rosizzle, at Rosizzle on Instagram. And she's like, yeah, that's me. And then you kind of already break that gap. And then I guess you just find a commonality with that person, and then you build off from there. But that was a fortunate thing that I grew up with.
Yeah, I think I agree with both you guys. Like, definitely sliding into the DMs is like totally fine if you like approach it in like a chill way. I see some people here like in the audience that I like met that way. I'm just like, I don't know, I think it's fine. Yeah. And like meet people through Instagram and go to events like this and talk to people. I'm in the same boat as Rosanna. We're both INFPs, like kind of shy, but like, I don't know, do it anyway.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to make yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually met Rosanna through Instagram from Vancouver,
Yeah.
and she was here, and that's how you got the job at Free. So shout out to Instagram. But other than that, for me, schmoozing is something that I'm really bad at, especially like when you're at a party and you have to introduce yourself. And like back in the day, I'm like, should I call myself a videographer or a filmmaker? Like will I sound like lame or will I sound professional? I don't know. But for the actual people that like, you got that small connection from that little schmooze that you partook on like in a random event, you have a follow through with it. You have a coffee or a lunch, and then that's where you have the opportunity to tell your own story, and then once and hear his or hers as well. And once that story like connects or doesn't, then you can move forward from there.
Cool. So we talked a little bit before we came up here about how there's no one set path to get where all of you guys have gotten. What I'm wondering if you guys can provide for the audience today is like just a couple traits that you think someone might need or that have been the most helpful to you in getting where you wanted to go, like 2 or 3 personality traits or skills that you acquired or habits that you have that have been the most useful in getting you to where you want to be.
I feel like every gig I have, I'm just like standing there with my camera, like how the fuck did I get here? And it's progressed like that too. And it's got to the point where, you know, you just kind of have to own like what's been given to you and embrace it and like perform the best you can in a genuine way, and then like that will lead to more gigs. Like every email I get, like I'm just so blessed and like happy that like things like that would happen, because I have been so happy to never have to like cold email like a client, be like, let's work together. It's just like so like happened progressively at that point. So I guess just like owning what's been given to you is like something that has granted me like where I am and how I've been and like this journey I've been on.
Not necessarily traits, but more like a motto that myself and my homies run with is under promise and over deliver. And it's something that I used to do the complete opposite of when I was first starting out, where I would say, yeah, I'll get that cut to you tomorrow, and then with the given experience I had, I completely failed. But having to undersell, over deliver not only enables trust with your client, but also it gives you a challenge as well. Like, can you deliver on that time? And even though you said that you're gonna give it on this time, like try to beat that record. And it's what got me. It allowed me to set me apart from the people that I've been working with, and it's, even though it's a bit challenging at first, and it's just something that I live by and always try to spread towards the people that I work with.
I've learned 2 things. I think one of them was confidence is key, and it doesn't always have to come in the method of like name dropping or anything like that. I think the most rewarding thing is actually if someone recognizes your work without you having to do that. It's pretty special, and some people are fortunate with that. And the second one was being okay with not knowing the answer, but being able to figure that out yourself and not letting anyone know that you don't know the answer on the spot. That's the most important thing, and I only realized that after seeing an HBO documentary on Steven Spielberg, and he said exactly that sometimes he's been on set and he didn't know what to do, and he never let that secret go. That's the one thing he kept to himself, and that was okay. Even on that level, he just stepped aside, took a moment to himself, and reflected on what the given situation was and how to approach it, and then he did it.
Oh, I really like that. I think mine is kind of like an offshoot of that as well. It's to be a risk taker. I think some of my biggest or my favorite projects are ones that I maybe wasn't 100% qualified to do, but I said yes anyway. And I learned so much. They're really hard, but also it's so rewarding and you feel like really great after. Also being open-minded and just being an improviser. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned from my creative journey over the past 3 years is to just not overplan and go with the flow. And I think that sometimes you don't really know where you need to go until you get there. So just be open to new experiences. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the end of our talk, guys. Thank you so much for being